All right, cool. So I am going to walk you through week 6, day 2. What we're going to do is literally go through setting up the EC2 server, installing Docker, running Jenkins on that running a Jenkins container on that EC2, just the whole week 6, day 2, setting up Jenkins.
Okay.
So first things first, AWS. It always defaults to Ohio, 1 North Virginia, US 1. All right. And then the next thing, EC2, I'm going to go ahead and launch an instance. I'm going to go ahead and name it Jenkins Server. Jenkins Server. Amazon Linux 2 is fine. Um, you can keep the regular settings. And so for this, we want to open up SSH and then add a security group. And we want to have any IP. On a production environment, you do not want any IP address to hit your Jenkins server. You want to specify a specific IP address, but your company will tell you which IP address can have access to that server. But nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and open up 8080 because that's the default port for Jenkins. I'm going to scroll down. So the highest, the free tier, it can go up to 30 gigs. It's
Mhm.
defaulted to 8. You don't really need it, but I just always use 30 because it's free. Why not? Then go ahead and launch the instance. Forgot something. We need a key pair. And so go ahead and create one. Create a key pair. So they updated this. Super weird. Create a key pair. I think it's glitched. This is super weird because when I hit create. So let's do this again real quick. It goes glitched. So really quick, Jenkins server, scroll down, key pair, create. I knew it was glitched. Um, Type in Jenkins, key pair, create no. Boom, it's downloading right there. That's for authenticating into, this is a file that you need to authenticate into the server. Um, so like anyone can't just like SSH into your virtual
Yeah.
computer. You need this file and then like point it to the IP address of your server. I just want to explain that because I want to make sure people understand that. So anyways, um, edit this. We want to go ahead and enable add a security group. Any IP, that's what 0.0.0 is. It says, hey, any IP can go to this can go to port 8080. Change it to 30 and launch the instance, and we're good to go. So that's action step number 2. And then action step number 3 is install Docker. So first off, let's go ahead and get this. It's running, but we want to give it a couple of seconds to fully be running. And so, cool. Everything looks good. Connect. Right, this is what I was talking about. If you want to SSH on your terminal, like this right here, you would, and I kind of want to use this too. Let's do this. I like to use my terminal because it's like I like using it. It's good practice on like remoting into like different servers instead of just using the browser. You can use the browser, don't get me wrong, but I just love how you can like create a new session. I can connect to another EC2 server, connect to another one. It's like, wow, on my computer, I have all these servers on here. And like understanding like, okay, the key pair, I need to go ahead and go to CD and then ls cd downloads, right? Because that's where my key pair is because I downloaded it in my downloads folder, right? So this is my downloads folder, okay, right there. That's where it is. So now you want to go to where your key pair is. Typically, it's going to be your download folder. You want to run this command so you can actually execute this file. It's just change the permissions. Okay. Then I'm going to just copy that command, paste it in there. Good to go. And now I can run this command. Sorry, not this one. This one, SSH. This is like, hey, go ahead and remote into the server -I. This is a hey, I'm using the key pairs to authenticate into this server. Now, if you look, the EC2, that's the EC2, and this is the IP address of my EC2. So I'm saying, hey, authenticate to this computer. That's pointing to that computer name. And if we go back, this is 9881.110.59. We look at the public IP 9881.110.59. That's saying, hey, authenticate with the key pair to this IP address, which is my virtual computer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm going to SSH, I'm going to copy that. Boom. I'm going to say, hey, do you want to continue? Type in yes. And then you're there when you see EC2 user and then the IP address.
Yeah.
Right? This is my computer. This is the EC2 computer that we just created. Now, I'm going to clear that. Cool. That is step number 2. And now we're going to install Docker. So the first thing we want to do, apt, I forgot the commands already. Apt update, git update, git update. Uh, Yum. Oh, I forgot the basics already. I haven't used it in a while. So anyways, this is what we do. So first off, we want to go ahead and update anytime we have a server, we want to always update it. So I'm going to go to ChatGPT. I'm literally saying, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm literally saying, I just created a Amazon Linux 2 AMI. I want to update the server. Yum update. Cool. So this is going to update the package repository. So the package, all right, so anyways, boom. I'll try to speed this up. It's updating. Then we're gonna go ahead and grab the next one. It's crazy how it knows what I'm trying to, that's actually kind of creepy. I have no idea how it knows I'm trying to install Docker. That's really weird. That's actually kind of crazy. Anyways, that's really strange. I didn't even specify I want to do anything Docker related. Probably listening to us. But anyways, that's good. It's going to copy that command. It's installing Docker. That's really weird. That's bugging me out actually. Anyways, so that's number 3. Step 3. And so to check that it's installed, type in docker-v, and it'll say Docker version. All right, boom, that's good to go. So now we want to run our Jenkins on this Docker so first off, let me double check because I don't think I did. Ignore the bears, it does that automatically. So I'm going to security. I want to make sure the port is there. Yep, 8080. So now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to use this command to run. It's saying run, but it's going, since my Docker image, my Jenkins Docker image is not on there, it's going to go to Docker Hub and automatically install it on my computer, my EC2 computer, and then it's going to run it. So permission, so I'm going to type in sudo su dash, that's going to change to the root user. As you see, EC2 is now to the root user. And now I'm going to rerun this command. Now it's downloading from Docker Hub, the Docker image. And it's really important to understand what's going on behind the scenes, like all this stuff, because that was an interview question that I had. I actually I heard it one time, but I can't articulate it. So if I can't teach it, that means I need to go back and relearn it, right? So that's something I have to do. Anyways, so now if we type in Docker, PS, I think it's -U or -A. So, all right, so look, I cannot, I forgot the command, but I know it's Docker PS something. So literally it'll say unknown shorthand flag. It'll say see Docker PS help. So if I type in Docker PS dash dash help, it'll tell me like the different flags. So dash A shows all container. Default shows just running. So this, I think it's showing all running container. So anyways, if I type in Docker PS, it will literally just tell me. But before, so I really want you to understand this. If you type in Docker PS help, dash dash help, it'll literally tell you all the flags that you can type. Show the latest created container. So I'm going to type in Docker PS dash L, right? I'm going to type in Docker PS dash S. These are flags. Displays the total file size, right? So look at that. It's just, pretty good stuff to know, right? If you don't know a command, if there wasn't ChatGPT back in the day, this is what you would have to do. It's just showing you how to use the tool. So anyways, that's besides the point. This lets us know that we have we have Jenkins installed on our server. And so now we want to go ahead and connect to that server. So boom, we're going to go ahead and get the IP, go here, paste it, colon 8080, voila. Now we are connected to Jenkins. And now we want to go ahead. So two things. I'm going to go to GitLab because inside of one of my documentations, coding challenge 1. So if you go to, so for anyone who's watching this, what you would do, you would go to the notes. Well, any one of my students. If you're not my students, you don't have access to these notes. But if you are, you want to go to the notes. Okay, you want to scroll down to the projects. Actually, we could just use this sidebar once once it's done loading up. Okay, and so we want to scroll down. We're going to go to projects. No, actually, Tech Challenge 1 right here. And so I made a really detailed step-by-step instructions for Tech Challenge 1 because it is it's pretty complicated to figure out on your own. And this is very detailed. This is really, really good stuff. So what we're going to do, I'm going to type in Jenkins. It's a bunch of Jenkins stuff. I'm going to scroll down to this right here. Connect to the Jenkins container and retrieve password. So this is what we just did. Actually, no, we're about to do that now. I'm going to copy this. Go here. Bring that. Paste this. Enter. I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger. Okay. And so we're going to need this container ID. So double click, right click. It's going to copy it. Okay. That's what I'll do. Hold that there. Hold that value there. And then we're going to copy this. Docker, exe, blah, blah, blah. All right. So we're going to come here, paste it. We're going to replace the container ID with this right here. Just do it like that. Boom. And so now I was the root user at my EC2 server, and now I'm the Jenkins user of my container, right? It's my container ID. And I kind of talk about it right here too. I'll talk about what to do, right? Use the blah, blah, blah to connect to your Jenkins container, right? So we're inside the Jenkins container on our EC2 server. So my computer, I connected to the EC2 server. I will switch to the root user to the EC2 server. And now I changed to the Jenkins user on the Jenkins container. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now I'm on the Jenkins container because I need to retrieve the default password. It's stored on the container. So this is the command I need to get the password. Boom, copy that. I'll go back to my server. I paste it in here. Cool. I can save it. This is my password manager. I use RoboForm. They have a free version. Highly recommend. But nonetheless, install suggested plugins. It's installing, doing this thing. And this is um setting up your Jenkins server. So now on action 5, write a Jenkins pipeline. So for this, I'm just going to copy this. So it says write a Jenkins file that automates building and pushing a Docker image to Docker Hub. Follow the lessons. Example integrated with Docker with Jenkins. Show you right. So I'm going to copy and paste this. You never want to do something without understanding it. So for this, I'm going to skip and continue. I'm not going to create an account. I'm going to skip and continue as admin. I'm going to save and finish. So we want to, so first off, let me open up ChatGPT. Oops. And I want to paste this stuff. I want to paste that in there. Cool. So we don't want to just copy and paste and we want to understand what we're doing. Okay. So that's going to come back to that. Going back to Jenkins. I'm going to go ahead and screenshot this.
With what is it? With action step 5 and 6, are we creating two different pipelines, or is it one pipeline that we're editing, or that was
This
one
one,
part?
I got you. It's going to be one pipeline, but
Okay.
yes, it's one pipeline, but I got you. It's like you make one pipeline and then you add to it, but I got you. And so nonetheless, we want to copy this because we want to remember this. I'm going to save this somewhere. So on Slack, right, you have access like to your own, like I post a lot of stuff to myself as it's just like my own place to like store stuff. So I know if I ever forget, oh, what's the username? Oh, it's admin. Also, I'm gonna go back to here. I'm gonna grab this password. So I already have that password on my password manager. So if I ever need to log in, it will automatically like I can hover over it will just automatically sign in. But for anyone who doesn't have the password manager, just say Jenkins login, username, admin, password, boom. And I got that from here when we catted the password. You following?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was doing too.
Nice. Start using Jenkins. Now we're inside Jenkins. Cool. Good to go. Now, like I said, this is super detailed. Very, 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 very detailed. I think in here, I actually do containerize an application with my Jenkins file. So let's go to Jenkins file. Like if you go through this, like you'll learn so much. Like crazy. Writing a Jenkins file. So I actually so I actually build a Docker image from my Docker file. So I created a Docker file. It's crazy. So like in this project, I created a Docker file, right, for an application. It was a front end and back end application. And then on the Jenkins file, I went ahead and build my Docker image from that Docker file. Does that make sense? I don't want to kind of confuse you with the different names. So like there was an application that needed to be containerized. And to containerize an application, you need to create a Docker file. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I created that Docker file, and then inside my Jenkins file, I automatically use this. I built it.
I don't think I created a Docker file. I think I was just creating the Jenkins file only.
Gotcha. We'll get there. And so, nonetheless, let's do this. So inside here, if we go to action step post, okay, cool. Write a Jenkins file. So create a Jenkins file for a simple application. You can choose any language or project that includes stage, build, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to say create a basic Flask application. The goal is to containerize the application with a Docker file. Go ahead and create that Docker file as well. I want you, so I'm looking at the action step. I want you to create a Jenkins file that builds, tests, and deploys that application. So we want to understand what's going on. So if we're saying, yo, we want to be able to build, test, and deploy an application, we need to understand where are we going to deploy that. Remember, an application lives on a computer. So we need to specify, okay, like so for instance, every time I've used Jenkins, I've like used it to deploy an application to like on a server, on an EC2 server. But to do that, you have to install, you have to do some things on Jenkins. Like you need to do certain things. So I'm gonna say I've never used Jenkins to install an application on my local computer. So I think that's where the disconnect was at. But nonetheless, we'll see. So first off, I'm gonna say, I want you to tell me where can I deploy this application? How can I deploy it locally, and how can I deploy it on my server? So, anyways, so first off, what's this stuff? Okay, yes, this is step 5 and 6, but this is more detailed. So first off, we need this. This is our application. So we're going to copy this. I'm going to go here. Okay. I'm going to go to my desktop and say, I'm going to say week 6 action steps. I'm going to come here. I'm going to go here. First of all, let me delete this. That's my code. I'm going to go to, actually, let's go to open folder. Action step week 6. Boom. Terminal. All right. Git bash. If you're on Mac, I think I'll say like, I forgot what it says. But anyways, so now quick, I'm going to connect back to my EC2. But remember, we need to be in the CD downloads. That's Siri. All right, just connected back to my server. Inside here, we want to go ahead and create app.py. Inside here, we want to go ahead and copy this. This is our Flask. Okay. So this is just a basic Flask application. Boom. I'm going to save that. Okay, we want to go ahead and create another file. This is for our dependencies, which is, so a dependency is it's something that's needed for an application to run. So inside this file, we need Flask. This is a dependency Flask. This is a Flask version. And so we're going to specify it here inside the requirements.txt. Cool. And now we're going to, we're going to create our Docker file. This is used to contain our application that we just made. And so we're going to copy this. We're going to go here, add a file. I'm going to say Docker file. Okay. Is all this making sense?
I'm following along with it for the most part.
Okay. If anything is confusing, just let me know. I'll stop and explain it. Like, I don't want you to just watch. So this is an application. It's a basic application that when we run it, maybe we're going to see it on the website. On the website, you'll see "Hello World, welcome to my containerized Flask application." You're going to see it in a second. You're going to see it once we're running it. So this is just a basic application. This is a Docker file. The Docker file is used to containerize this application. So we can make a Docker image. So we're saying, hey, like, I'm not going to explain Docker because that's already in the program, but like this is a Docker file. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is the dependencies. I explain that inside the program. If anything is confusing, I can already run over it inside the course. And so, anyways, this is the Jenkins file that we're going to use. Now, So let's look at this. What we're gonna do, we're gonna build, we're gonna build, we're gonna build this application locally. So let me go to, this is EC2, this is my computer. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna type in Docker. So first off, I need Docker to be running. Type in Docker. Oops. So the Docker engine is starting. Cool. We need that engine to be running before we run Docker commands. So now I'm going to type in Docker build dash T space Flask dash app. That's naming the Docker image. So I'm saying, hey, go ahead and build a Docker image and name it Flask dash app, right? It's going to containerize this application. Give me 1 second. Just want to double check. Cool.
So the requirements text, that's a dependency with the Flask
Yep.
version.
Exactly. I'm going to click enter. And now it's building the Docker image. So this is the Docker file. It's going to this Docker file, and it's like, okay, I'm understanding your instructions. Like literally, let's look at this. So, all right, cool. Look at this. It says from, and you need to understand this too, from docker.io library, Python 3.9 Slim. Python 3.9 Slim. This is like, I want you to go, I don't want to go super in detail, but nonetheless, I'm using an image. Like like when we create an EC2, we have to select an AMI, Amazon Linux 2, right? You following?
Mhm.
And then we can connect to it, and then like this is our computer, right? You following? This is our
Yeah.
EC2. And so for the Docker image, it's like, yo, what AMI do you want to use? So the how we selected Amazon Linux 2, we're using another, this is not called an AMI, it's called an image, but it's the same, it's similar. But it's like, yo, what do you want? What is it running under? So like we're saying, hey, we want to use this Python 3.9. That's an equivalent thing to Amazon Linux 2. It's like the base image. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's
That's
Linux. Like this Python, like if you like look at like what it really is, it's Linux. It's a Linux, it's I think it's Alpine something. But nonetheless, it's Linux. So the same way this is Linux, this is like saying, hey, I want to use Python 3.9. And if you look at the root of it, like what operating system it is, it's Linux. Does that make sense? It's just Linux with Python installed on it.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so like we want that because like when all right, so in the Docker image, so when we're saying Docker build, it's like, yo, it's going through this Docker file and it's going through the instructions. Hey, use this. It's going to Docker Hub and grabbing that image. So like what I mean by that, literally, if we go to Docker Hub, if we type in Python, it's literally going to Docker Hub. It's going to Python. If I type in 3.9. So this one is 3.9 Slim. It's going to Docker Hub and going there. It's grabbing 3.9 Slim. You see that?
Um,
It's grabbing that image. Inside this image, I'm not gonna go super in depth with that, but nonetheless, that's like Amazon Linux 2. So it's like the same way how we see Amazon Linux 2 and we can select it, this Docker file is grabbing that Python image. Does that make sense?
yeah, that makes sense.
All right, cool. Now it even says it. That's step 1 out of 4, right? 2 out of 3. Where's 2 out of 3? It kind of disappeared. I think it's glitched. But this right here, it was saying set the working directory. When you start the image, you want it to work under this directory. The same way how we just connected to like this server, it's under automatically, it's under this directory. Does that make sense? The home/EC2 user.
Mhm.
So like you can specify where you want to start at. And so we want to start at we selected this because that's typically where we want the application. Anyways, nonetheless, set the working directory. We're going to copy our application. We're going to copy that, and it's going to be inside this directory, inside our image, inside the computer, inside the container. Because the container is a computer. And we want to run these dependencies. We want to install the dependencies for the application. So now this is saying the application is exposed on port 5000. Like, but I kind of already go over this inside the Docker stuff. I just kind of wanted, I shouldn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if I type in Docker images, we can see 4 minutes ago, we just created this Flask application. Now I'm going to run it. I'm going to type in Docker run -d-p 5000. Don't worry too much about, like, I'm getting this from ChatGPT. Don't worry too much about the flags. But now, boom, the Docker is running. So if I type in Docker PS, it exited 5 minutes ago. So give me 1 second. I don't think this is going to work because I don't know why the Docker image is not. So I'm going to say, give me 1 second. I just want you to see how this Docker PS. Okay, so the Docker it's starting, but it just stopped. So I'm gonna copy and paste this into ChatGPT because I want you to see us containerizing the application and running it locally on our computer. Right. And so, but I ran the Docker image. Seems like the container is not running as expected. Docker did not display, check the logs. And so like this is another thing too, like Python. 1 second. ls Docker file app. Okay, so when there's issues with your Docker container, this is really good. I'm gonna type in Docker. So first off, let's clear this Docker ps-a, right? This is the container ID. Like we started it, but it keeps on exiting this Docker container. And so what we want to do, I'm going to check the logs. So I'm going to copy this container ID. So remember, whenever this issues, we always want to find the logs. There's an issue. This container is not running. So I'm going to type in Docker logs, paste it. So now this is what's going on. File, line in module 1, blah, 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 all this other stuff. Import error, cannot import name URL quote. So I'm not sure what this stuff means, but I'm going to copy and paste this stuff into ChatGPT. I mean, I could, if you can Google it, to be honest, but ChatGPT is just so much efficient and like, it'll tell you the answer. It'll tell you the issue. And so like ChatGPT said, hey, check the logs. So that's what I did. Everything I'm doing, I'm just putting it into ChatGPT. So now update your requirements. So let's see. I'm going to copy that. Sorry, you didn't see. I just copied this, copy that code. I'm going to go to requirements, paste it in there. I'm going to save it. Then it says to rerun the build. So it's rebuilding it. You following?
Mhm.
All right, cool. So now if I type in Docker images, I should see 4 seconds ago. Cool. Now I'm going to rerun it. Verify the application is running. So first of all, I'm type in Docker PS. Cool. So now do you see how crazy that is? How we had an issue. We checked the logs. We grabbed that log, put it in the ChatGPT. It told us what's wrong. It gave us the answer. You don't want to just keep on, like, you don't want to just do something and not understand what's going on. Typically, like I read it. Like I mean, I kind of knew, like once I saw this, I kind of knew what was going on. We needed to update the requirements.txt. We needed this another dependency for the application to work.
Okay, yeah.
You see what I mean? So you see dependencies, you see how important that is, how we didn't have all of the dependencies for the application to work?
Oh, we're missing one.
Exactly. And so now it's running. So now to check our application, let's go ahead and connect to the server. And so this is running locally on our computer. If we have anything running on our computer, we type in HTTP -- localhost. Now, let's make sense of this, right? Local is like our computer. Host, like it's our computer host is hosting, right? That's just the name. It's local host, right? That means our computer and the port that it's running under. Do you see how crazy that is? You see how we had an issue? We figured out the problem by looking at the logs, and then we got the answer. We implemented it, and then we got this. Now we literally have a container running on our computer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But let's say we don't want our application to run on our computer because, you know, like let's say we don't want that. We want to run it on AWS. And so now if we go back here, because I asked it to give me two different ways of deploying it. It said you can deploy it locally, which is what we did, or deploy it on a server. But secure copy. Um, I'll do this to kind of make things a little bit um we will run it on our on our local computer. Okay, but this is what I want you to do or understand. This right here, we created the Flask application, which is this. That's all what this does. It just creates this hello world, welcome to my containerized app. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Cool. And it even adds to the literally any IP port 5000. So anyways, that's the Docker file. This is the Jenkins pipeline. So for this, I'm gonna go here, capital J, Jenkins file. I'm gonna copy and paste this. Remember, we don't want to just copy and paste and not understand what's going on, right? Your Docker Hub username, blah, blah, blah. So this is actually going to push it to Docker Hub. No, image name. So let's do this. Ah, man, I'm tired already.
Yeah, this stuff is lengthy.
Yeah, no, seriously. Um, so now we're gonna go back to boom. So we did it locally, and it's good that we understand how to containerize it and run it. We know how to create an application, containerize it, and deploy it locally. But now we want to automate it with Jenkins. It says for a simple application, right? We already created that. Include stages for building, testing, and deploying the application. So I'm going to say for the application, I just deployed locally, manually. Give me a Jenkins file to stage, build, sorry, to build, test, and deploy on my local computer. But the thing is, okay, so the thing is, how does it know how to deploy it on my computer? Like the deployment relies on Docker to run the application. Oh, mm, so this is something I actually don't know because I've never deployed something on Jenkins on my own computer. I always use AWS. But this is what I'll do. Show me how to deploy it on my EC2 server. So we'll use it because I don't want to spend time trying to figure this stuff out. I mean, it's probably not that difficult, but I've done this before. So, okay, this is what we'll do. Grab this. I'm trying to find. Where is it? This one. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. So what we're gonna do, new ones. Oh, okay. Okay, now I remember. Okay. Yeah, this is kind of this is what I want you to do. I want to no, because you're having an issue with the Jenkins part. The Jenkins, so all right, let's do this. What we are going to do, so let's look at this. Build, test, and deploy the app. Okay. Mm, hmm, hmm. It's kind of tricky. So every time, so I build, test, and deploy. So typically, when I'm using Jenkins, I'm using like either Docker Hub or ECR, which is like a repository. And I'll like push the image to the repository and then deploy it to like ECS or EKS, which is like Kubernetes. ECS is like it's kind of like Kubernetes, but it's just another its own flavor. You following? It's okay if not.
Maybe not at the end.
So
I know what a repository is.
Kubernetes, like EKS is Amazon's version of Kubernetes. Do you remember what Kubernetes
Okay.
is? Okay. ECS is kind of like EKS, but it's like you can run multiple containers on there and manage multiple containers, a large amount. So like, but you can deploy, I can deploy this container, right? The literally this container that's running right here on my local computer, I can deploy it in AWS using either EKS or ECS. So like you see like I have my computer right here.
Hmm.
You see how like this container is running on my computer?
Yeah, I see that.
Instead of like, because this is infrastructure, my actual physical computer. Instead of running this container on my physical computer, I can use a service in AWS called EKS or ECS to like it's going to have its own infrastructure, like a computer, and then it's going to run the container. It's going to run the Docker image. It's going to run the container on that infrastructure. So the same way how this container is running on my computer and we see this application, we can imitate that in AWS and run that container on AWS on ECS or EKS. We don't even have to create an EC2. It does all that stuff. It handles the infrastructure. We just need to set it up. Is that it's okay if it's still confusing?
That part makes sense. Like I wouldn't know how to do it myself, but the way you're talking about it makes sense.
And it's all inside, like all this stuff is. I did it um inside coding challenge one. What I want you to I really let me see where you're at. Hold on, give me 1 second. 6 day. All right. So did you do week 6 day one?
Yeah, I did week 6, day one.
I want you to skip week 6 day two because that's gonna take like maybe 30 to an hour for me to do it right now. Because the next step I would need to do is to I don't want to take some time to learn how to deploy it locally because that'll still take some time. I was trying to find the fastest way. but I would need to create some Terraform code to build out ECS or EKS, whatever I want. And so I can have that infrastructure to deploy my containerized application. So for Jenkins to work, like when I for this file to work, right? So like for instance, the whole purpose is to like deploy that application somewhere, but I want to deploy it in AWS. But I need to use Terraform to build out my EKS cluster or to build out EKS or ECS. That's the infrastructure, right? And then I would deploy my container to that infrastructure the same way how I deployed my container locally with this Docker run command. This is me deploying it to this computer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
And so what I want you to do, coding, I want you to skip week 6, day 2 right now and start with Tech Challenge 1. This right here is a very extensive project, but once you go through it, you will literally know how to do week 6, day 2 because it's pretty simple. They write a Jenkins file to automatically push it. So this right here is in, so write a Jenkins file that automates building and pushing. Integrate Docker with Jenkins. So honestly, what I'll do, I'm gonna edit this. I'm gonna edit this. Because I need to take this stuff out. Because I'll say create a create an application, a simple Flask application, and then write a Jenkins file that builds it and pushes the Docker image to Docker Hub, and then deploy it to EKS or something like that. I'm gonna edit this, but nonetheless, that is in Tech Challenge 1, Coding Challenge 1. That's all that stuff in here, and it's literally step by step. Um, if you run into any issues, just reach out to me or like the Q&A channel. But it's straightforward. It's very straightforward. Like I did this project myself.
So
This
is that Tech Challenge 1 and week 6, day 2, are they the exact same or
No, it's different. Definitely different. Like Tech Challenge 1 is it's similar. Like week 6, day 2 has those things inside Tech Challenge 1, but there's more stuff that you're doing. This is like a real project. Very extensive. But once you do it one time and you do it a second time, it's like I want you to of course do it one time, but like go over it like a second or third time. I have students who do that and they get really good at it and they really understand this process like really good. And
and then
so,
after I understand this process, day 2 will make a lot more sense.
exactly. And so what I want you to do is go through this and then just reach out to me if you have any issues or when you complete it. But once you do this, week 6, day 2 is going to seem very easy.
Okay.
So that's where I would leave you. So you see how crazy it is, like that I just kind of like created the server, like I did all that stuff on it. I created like I'm not gonna lie, it's not like it's like a part of me. Like it's I can do it like that. Like, but for me to get there, like I'm like I just did it a lot of times. And I can create the EKS, all that stuff. It's just gonna take some time. And low key, I'm kind of burnt out a little bit. But uh but nonetheless, it's like you're already gonna do that with coding challenge 1. I created this and it's yeah, like definitely go through it. The answer isn't here. And then also you already have to go through it anyways.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'll just do it a few times so that way I really understand it.
And then like it's very detailed. I explain everything in here. I explain like the steps. So just go through it. And you should be fine.
Okay.